What if the United States wasn't so united after all? Across the country, a quiet movement is growing. From coast to coast, some states are pushing back, politically, economically, even culturally, and asking a once unthinkable question. Should we leave the US? It sounds radical, but it's not just talk anymore. Some states have the history, the economy, and the motivation to actually do it, and a few are already taking real steps toward independence. In this video, we're counting down 10 US states that could break away in the future. And trust us, number 1 may already be halfway out the door. Stay tuned, you won't believe who made this list. Number 10, Alaska. It was bought for 2 cents an acre. Now, it's eyeing the price of independence. Alaska may be part of the US, but in many ways it's always been a world apart. Geographically isolated, closer to Russia than to Washington, D.C., and once part of the Russian Empire until 1867, this state is like no other. With over 663,000 square miles of land but only 730,000 residents, it's the least densely populated U.S. state. But here's the kicker. Alaska owns more natural resources per capita than any other U.S. state. Oil, natural gas, minerals, fisheries. Alaska generates billions annually from its energy sector. In 2023 alone, oil revenue accounted for roughly 85% of the state's budget. And the permanent fund dividend pays Alaskans a yearly stipend just for living there. Secessionist talk isn't new here. The Alaskan Independence Party, founded in 1984, openly campaigned for a vote on separation and has had real political influence, including a governor who aligned with the party. While a full break is still unlikely in the short term, Alaskans consistently show above-average support for sovereignty. Add in a unique identity rooted in native culture, self-reliance, and geographic disconnection, and the spark is there. Number 9, New Hampshire. Live free or die may be more than just a motto. New Hampshire is a small state with a big rebellious streak. In recent years, it's become the epicenter of a political experiment known as the Free State Project, where thousands of libertarians have moved in with one goal: reduce government or leave it altogether. In 2022, a bill to secede from the Union was actually introduced in the state legislature, shocking the rest of the country. Though it failed 323 to 13, the fact that it reached a vote was unprecedented. New Hampshire's low-tax, pro-liberty stance aligns with a strong undercurrent of anti-federal sentiment. The state has no income tax, no sales tax, and one of the highest rates of civic engagement in the U.S. It also has a deeply decentralized government structure, giving more power to local towns than almost any other state. In recent polls, over 30% of New Hampshire residents expressed openness to greater autonomy or even independence, especially if federal mandates contradict local values. With a proud Revolutionary War heritage and a population that increasingly questions federal overreach, New Hampshire's quiet secessionist pulse is growing louder. Number 8, California. If it were a country, it'd have the 5th largest economy on Earth, and it's tired of playing by Washington's rules. California isn't just a state, it's a global power. With a $4.2 trillion GDP, it outpaces countries like India and the United Kingdom. From tech giants in Silicon Valley to the entertainment engine of Hollywood to massive agricultural exports, California is economically self-sufficient in ways most countries dream of. In 2017, the Cal Exit movement was born, a bold campaign for California to leave the US inspired by Brexit. And while the petition didn't make it to a vote, it gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures and national media attention. The reasons? A growing disconnect between California's progressive social values and federal policies. Immigration, climate change, healthcare, gun control. In nearly every category, California finds itself clashing with national agendas. With a population of 39 million, its own power grid, CAISO, and extensive international trade relationships, some experts argue it could function independently, at least in theory. And while full secession faces serious legal roadblocks, the sentiment is clear. Nearly 1 in 3 Californians supported the idea of independence in a 2021 Zogby poll. That's no fringe. Number 7, Texas. The Republic of Texas never really died. It's just been waiting for its moment. Texas was an independent country before it joined the U.S. in 1845, and many Texans haven't forgotten. The Lone Star State still flies its flag at equal height to the U.S. flag, and secessionist ideas have long simmered beneath its cowboy boots and oil fields. Enter the Texas Nationalist Movement, or TNM, one of the largest organized secessionist groups in the United States, claiming over 400,000 members. In 2023, the Texas Independence Referendum Act was proposed in the state legislature, aiming to put the question of secession directly to voters. Economically, Texas could survive on its own. It's the second largest state economy, with a GDP over $2.5 trillion, bolstered by oil, tech, manufacturing, and agriculture. It also controls its own electric grid, ERCOT, something few states can say. Politically, tensions with the federal government have only increased. From immigration conflicts at the border to lawsuits over gun laws and environmental regulations, Texas has repeatedly challenged Washington. In 2022, 66% of Republican voters in Texas said they'd support secession if the federal government became too intrusive. That line? It's already looking blurred. Number 6. Hawaii. Annexed without a vote, occupied without consent, and the native movement is rising. Hawaii's relationship with the U.S. is one of the most contested and painful chapters in American expansionism. In 1893, the Kingdom of Hawaii, then a recognized sovereign nation, was overthrown in a U.S.-backed coup. 5 years later, it was annexed without a vote from its people. To this day, many native Hawaiians reject the legality of that annexation. In fact, in 1993, the U.S. Congress passed the Apology Resolution, formally acknowledging the illegality of the takeover. But apology doesn't mean reversal. In the decades since, a powerful movement for Hawaiian sovereignty has grown. Organizations like Kalahui Hawaii and Nation of Hawaii call for either full independence or significant autonomy. Cultural revitalization efforts, land protests, and legal challenges continue to push the issue forward. Polls show that nearly 25% of native Hawaiians support full independence, while even more demand self-governance. The state's unique culture, language, and identity, combined with historical grievances, make it one of the few U.S. states where the concept of sovereignty is deeply woven into public life. The question isn't whether Hawaii could go, but whether the U.S. will ever truly acknowledge the legitimacy of the movement. The next 5 states on this list aren't just dreaming of independence, they're laying the groundwork right now. From tribal nations to regions caught between borders, what comes next may reshape the map of America as we know it. Make sure you keep watching. What happens at number 1 could spark the next American breakup. Number 5. Vermont. It joined the Union by choice, and it might just choose to leave. Vermont is the only state in New England that was once an independent republic, known as the Republic of Vermont, which lasted from 1777 to 1791 before voluntarily joining the U.S. That independent spirit hasn't faded. In fact, in the early 2000s, a group called Second Vermont Republic re-emerged with a simple message: Vermont should leave the Union. The group, which gained momentum after the 2004 and 2016 elections, argues that the U.S. has become too militarized, too corporate, and too disconnected from small local values. Vermont's culture leans heavily on town meetings, direct democracy, and community-based governance. With a population under 650,000, it has more cows than people in some counties, and a political culture that fiercely guards its independence. In 2022, nearly 40% of Vermonters said they'd support increased autonomy, according to a UVM poll. Economically, Vermont is small but self-reliant. Agriculture, artisanal industries, renewable energy, and a thriving tourism economy power its GDP. Environmentally, it leads in green legislation, often clashing with national energy or gun policies. And socially, Vermonters are deeply wary of big government. They don't want to be told how to live, not by Washington, not by Wall Street. To them, independence isn't radical, it's tradition. Number 4. Florida. A state of extremes with growing talk of going it alone. Florida is a paradox, culturally southern, politically divided, economically massive, and geographically unique. With a GDP of over $1.5 trillion, 22 million residents, and a global port economy, Florida is one of the most influential states in the U.S., and one of the most volatile. Why would Florida break away? First, political tensions. Florida has rapidly shifted toward conservatism, especially under leaders like Governor Ron DeSantis. State officials have repeatedly defied federal health mandates, immigration orders, and even climate regulations. Second, identity. Florida isn't just part of the South, it's become its own political and cultural force. Its population includes retirees from the Northeast, Cuban Americans in Miami, and rural communities that vote like it's still the 1950s. Floridian identity is no longer national, it's post-national. But here's the twist. In recent years, libertarian and nationalist movements have gained popularity, especially in the Panhandle and central regions. Over 20% of Floridians in a 2021 poll said they'd support independence if federal overreach continued. And economically, Florida runs like a quasi-nation already. It has international airports, world-class ports, and industries that attract global capital, especially in tourism, agriculture, aerospace, and crypto. Its budget rivals that of sovereign nations like Portugal or New Zealand. While the Free Florida idea isn't mainstream yet, the social media sphere is buzzing. Accounts advocating independence gained over 250,000 followers during the pandemic. And as culture wars deepen, don't be surprised if the idea of a Republic of Florida shifts from meme to movement. Number 3, the Navajo Nation. It's not a state. It's a sovereign nation trapped inside one. This may surprise you, but the Navajo Nation, which spans parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, is the largest Native American territory in the U.S., covering over 27,000 square miles and home to nearly 400,000 people. Legally, the Navajo Nation already functions like a country within a country. It has its own president, legislature, police force, judiciary, and flag. It signs deals with foreign countries, manages its own resources, and even issues its own vehicle plates. But here's the catch. It remains economically and politically tethered to the U.S. federal government, often underfunded and neglected. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed just how deeply the nation was overlooked, with infection rates per capita higher than any U.S. state and aid delayed for weeks. Calls for true sovereignty have grown louder. In 2023, a new generation of Navajo leaders began drafting proposals for expanded autonomy, economic independence, and greater recognition under international law. Support for full independence remains a minority view, but support for pushing toward sovereign state status is at a historic high, especially among younger Navajo citizens. With rich energy resources, an expanding educational system, and increasing global support for indigenous self-determination, the Navajo Nation may not break away like a U.S. state, but it may rise as a nation whose allegiance is to its people first, not the federal government. Number 2, Oregon. A state divided, and one half wants out, not to be free, but to become Idaho.
What if a state didn't secede, but split? That's exactly what's happening in eastern Oregon, where a growing movement called Greater Idaho is pushing for several conservative counties to leave Oregon and join the state of Idaho, which they feel better represents their values. The movement isn't fringe. As of 2025, 13 counties have already voted in favor of the idea, and activists are working with Idaho lawmakers to begin negotiations. The reasons are rooted in deep political polarization. Eastern Oregon is rural, religious, and right-leaning. Western Oregon, home to Portland and Eugene, is progressive, urban, and liberal. Supporters say the Oregon legislature ignores their needs on everything from gun rights to taxation to land use, and they're tired of it. While outright secession from the U.S. is unlikely, this type of state fracture could set a precedent for others, from California to Illinois, to redraw their own maps. Economically, the proposed counties are agricultural powerhouses: wheat, beef, lumber, and more. If absorbed into Idaho, the shift would boost Idaho's population by over 200,000 people and add 15% more land to the state. This isn't theoretical anymore. It's in motion. Number 1, Puerto Rico. It's already not a state, and it might never want to be. Puerto Rico isn't technically a U.S. state, it's a territory. But the question is, should it even be that? For decades, Puerto Rico has been caught in limbo, not a state, not a country. Its people are U.S. citizens, yet they can't vote in presidential elections and have no voting representation in Congress. And yet they serve in the military, pay into federal programs, and rely on U.S. laws. The desire for change is growing, but not just towards statehood. While some advocate for full U.S. statehood, a consistent 20 to 25% of Puerto Ricans support complete independence, according to Pew and Gallup polls. That number climbs even higher when you include those who favor free association, a sovereign status similar to Micronesia or Palau. After Hurricane Maria devastated the island in 2017, many residents felt abandoned by the U.S. Relief was slow, infrastructure remains broken, and economic recovery has been sluggish. The trauma sparked a cultural awakening, with younger generations embracing Puerto Rican nationalism, anti-colonial rhetoric, and pride in their heritage. Economically, Puerto Rico faces challenges, including a $70 billion debt crisis, but it also has potential. tourism, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and a rising tech sector. In 2023, a non-binding referendum once again asked Puerto Ricans to choose their political future. The result? 45% for statehood, 27% for independence or free association, and the rest undecided. The trend is clear. The desire to be something else is growing. Puerto Rico may not break away violently, but its exit from the U.S. framework may be the first domino in the collapse of American territorial control.
The idea of states leaving the United States may sound impossible, but when you mix history, economics, identity, and deep political division, the cracks become visible, even in a country that once prided itself on unity. Some of these states want freedom, some just want representation, others, they're tired of being ignored, silenced, or controlled. The U.S. may not fall apart overnight, but if or when it does, it might not come from a foreign enemy, but from within. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dive documentaries every week. Drop a comment. Which state do you think will go first? I'm reading every one. This is Beyond the Globe, and as always, stay curious, stay informed, and stay united. For now.